today's podcast, not just because the weekend is around, but because I have my first special guest here today, my mom, Maryann Bharath. Thank you for joining me on the Feed podcast today.
Thank you, Tas, for having me on your podcast, The Feed. It's a real honor to be here, and I'm grateful and super proud that you started this new venture, and I trust that God will enlarge your coast and that you will do great and mighty things through this platform, and that many will come to know Jesus even through this podcast called The Feed.
Thank you. We received that. The question of today's podcast is, what are you laying on the table for us today as our food for thought?
God is going to take you to a place called there. I have a story to say. Many years ago, I wouldn't say many years ago, I think it's about 13 years ago, when I made a decision to come up to the far north. I remember the Lord gave me a word, and it was the early hours of the morning. We had to make a decision to relocate, and the Lord said that go and I will prepare the way, because I will take you to a place called there. And I didn't know where there was. For some of you that are listening to me, we lived in a place called Tuba, never saw it on the map. And then I was now moved to Shuslui, also did not see it on the map. And presently where I'm living, you may not still find it on the Google map, because that's how far away there was. So I am in a place right now where I realize that where God took me out from having the luxuries of life, coming out of a city life, being a city woman, coming now into the farm, many say the bush, the backside of the desert, is my place called there. And in that moment, God showed us that His hand, His invisible hand, has never left us nor forsaken us. He's been there through it all. I can speak about the songwriter that sings a million little miracles, and I could give you more than just.
And when you think that, when you heard that word from God that He's going to take you to a place called there, what was the thoughts that ran through your head? What was the questions that you had when you realized, God, you're taking me to a place, but I don't know where there is? But what drove you to that decision that you're going to be doing this?
Because we heard from God. I think hearing from God is important. There are many times we prematurely do things because everybody else is doing it. How I realized that it was God, because this place that we are living in, people look at us and think, hey, are you guys crazy? We're living out there. We had water issues, we've had power issues. There were so many things, and I thought, God, what am I doing here? But I realized that it was God pushing us into the destiny that where we are presently sitting at. And I see how His hand has been so mighty upon us, His grace that overflowed through us, miracles upon miracles, that I could give you testimonies upon testimonies that He sent us here, giving up Durban and suddenly realizing that, God, you're taking me to an unknown area and I do not know where there is. But He prepared the way. He prepared the way, and He prepared the way, and He continues to prepare the way for us.
That's good, because wherever God takes you, they say where there's a will, there's a way. But where there's a place called there is a God. God
Amen.
is there, and He's already provided things for you in the unknown. Sometimes in my life, I always feel like, God, where are you taking me? Because I don't know what's next. I always want to know what's happening. If God tells me, if I have a dream or a vision to be at a certain place, I want to know whether I'm going to have a house, I'm going to have a car, I'm going to have food on my table, what salary am I going to be earning. But sometimes necessarily we don't have to know those things so we know who our Father is.
And I can vouch to that, because if I look when we made the decision to move, it wasn't something that man told us, okay, you know what, you just do it. We heard the voice of God. Coming up to the far north with no job, we were not employed, just called into full-time ministry, and we took the step of faith and we just said, Lord, you're going to drive us through this. I remember moments where I used to stand in my lounge and I used to watch TBN because that was the only source of media I had, because we were just starting up a church in a Zulu town about Zulu people, and people came from all over, and we couldn't speak the language at that time in 2007, and stood many times in my lounge wondering, God, you said you're taking me to a place called there. Is this where there is? I don't know anybody. I cannot speak the language. Um, I barely know nothing in this place. What's going on? And I used to cry out to the Father, and never knew that He was actually ordering our steps. To think that 13 years later, we're in a place where I could give you so many miracles that has been performed along the way, where we were blessed with a house by a total stranger. I came into a town of strangers, had no family, no friends. God prepared people to come into our lives like angels. I had people coming to my door saying, you know what, I just want to bless you. And I said, but you don't know who I am. And they said, no, I heard you in the community and just decided that we want to pay you a visit and just spend some time with you. And I said, Lord, what's going on here, because I don't know these people. And in all that, God pitched up and He showed me that this is their moment. This is where I've taken you. I told you that I'll prepare the way, and you need not to worry, because when you look at the children of Israelites, their shoes were not worn out, their clothes were not worn out. And then it's exactly how I felt, because from nothing God brought us through a place of not arriving yet, but He showed me that He is the God of the impossible, He's the God of miracles, that He parted the Red Sea, and He will continue to do that. We've crossed over rivers, we've crossed over deserts, and God has been faithful and true to His word. I look back and I think of my children. Task can remember when they were growing up, difficult moments, tough moments, and how God just allowed people, strange people, to come to us and bless us with uniforms for school when we had nothing. And financially, you may think that, you guys probably had it all when you came up to the far north. Some of you may not know my story. It'll probably take the whole night if I had to tell you the story, but just a little testimony as to how God brought us from having everything and taking us to a place called there, in the sense that He gave us, we were in a home where we did not know whether our rent was going to be paid and how it was going to be paid. But yet God would send angels, total strangers, to my door and say, I was sent here by a friend, and I just want to bless you. And then the rent would be met with. There were days we had nothing on our table, and God would send someone at my door and says, I thought of you today, and you were in my mind the whole day, and I just felt that I need to bless you. And I would sob. There were days that I would just cry out to God and say, Lord, nobody knew what I was praying, and I would just lift up my hands and give thanks to God, because I know when He said to go, we went, and He provided right to the very end, right to this very moment, and He continued doing it. So if you're in a there moment, don't regret where you're at, because God's taking you somewhere.
Yes.
He's taking you to a place that you do not see yet. You may not identify it. You may think, but God, how? I'm a testimony as to how God provided in the midst of nothingness. There were times where I had my 3 children, and we had absolutely nothing. Probably people that are looking at me strangely and thinking, really? Could this really be a true story? My children can vouch to it. Tasmin must have been in primary school at that time. We were standing in our kitchen and we said, God, now what? And I remember my husband just took out bread, a slice of bread that we had, and we had water because we had no juice. And we took our communion together and we said, Lord, we give thanks no matter what. We're giving thanks unto you for what you're going to do. And the next morning, we had a knock on our door, and a person came to our house and said, I'm here just to bless you. And I didn't know whether to cry or what, but I just started to give thanks to God, because even in that time of communion, I was angry at that moment because I felt God abandoned me, because I said, Lord, if you sent me to a place called there, you said you will provide or prepare the way. Why am I still struggling? And every day God continually showed up and he pitched up. And remember, Tasmin must have been probably in grade 2, and she loves Christmas. She's a big fan of Christmas, and um, I remember she said to us, can we just have a Christmas tree? And I said, well, Tess, we can't afford a Christmas tree. But she said, Mom, please, let's just get a Christmas tree. I said, Tess, but we cannot afford a Christmas tree because it was too much then. And I remember she went and she made a little star out of beads, and she kept it, believing in faith that it was going to happen. I remember that time. And then she said, Dad, I'm going to get this Christmas tree. And then her dad said, okay, Tass, you better pray that God does something. And the story is that we went up to ShopRite, and I think my husband probably just had 100 rand and thought we could just buy a chicken or 2 and just prepare something for the day. And he walks into ShopRite and he was managed to buy chicken and a few veggies. And then he crosses this aisle and then he sees this Christmas tree, and he takes it to the till, and he bought it for 1.99 rand. It was actually written there 199 rand, and then he said, oh, but it's too much. So anyway, he takes it and he said, let me just, maybe it's 199 or 1999 or whatever, but he took it to the till, and the person said to him, this tree is 199. And they said, what? He said, this tree is 1. I said, okay, you know what? They said, people made a mistake. And they said, well, if they made a mistake, I'm just going to take this tree. Lo and behold, we brought this tree home and we open it and we find that it came with decorations and lights. And we hid it, and then Tass was in bed, and the next morning we put it up, and she got up and she saw this tree, but there was no gifts underneath this tree. And she says, oh, where did you get this tree from? And I said, well, Tass, your prayer, God answered. And there it is. And then she took a star, and that was the only thing that she was able to put onto this tree because there was no gifts underneath. And of course she comes to the next question and says, what about gifts? I said, now you got the tree and now you want the gifts. And then she began to take boxes and started to wrap them up and believe in faith. And she said, okay, we're just going to put them, and one for Jesse, she's her older brother, and Ethan. And a few days later, we had a couple visit us. And we did not know what to do at that moment. And I said, God, now what do? We have a Christmas tree, I've got 1 chicken, and we're going to have our Christmas. And and that day, God showed that his favor has been right at that moment of the place called there. Because this person came in with lots of gifts for Tasmin, of course for Jesse and my little boy, and we were provided for with our meals, and we gave thanks to God. That was just one of the million little miracles that God performed at that moment. And I think Tass can continue saying how much more God provided when she was at school, where we couldn't even afford the uniforms in a foreign place of Tuba and Prishlui. And a woman in the community that came knocking at my door, and she says that the Lord allowed her to come and bless my daughter with her first set of uniform. And she was able to go to school. So it was tough times in our place called there, and God came through. I moved from Tuba into Shishlui, and I'm talking about the little million miracles in this place called there, where we were now coming to a community where a little Afrikaans woman gave us a house to live in. She said, there's the keys to my car, the car is now yours. We were still without full-time and full-time ministry, and God opened a door for my husband to be reinstated into the police. And I thought, okay, this is it. In this place called there, your dad was going to be taken over to another town, but he chose to keep him in the town that we are in ministry at this very moment. It was not even 500 meters from our house. My children's school was opposite the house. And it was just God saying, I now brought you to the place called there. And Tas can testify to the million little miracles God performed in this place of the little town of Shishlui, and how He's progressed us in difficult times, in stormy times, in fiery times. We kept the faith and we kept on going. And that was my story of the place called there.
That's, I think part of it, I was there at
The
the place
witness
called
to
there.
it. Yeah.
But the decision of going there, I would have never known all the prayer and the struggles that you would have to have been through to have realized that we're making this decision to go there. But I think the beauty in knowing that the place called there is that you would have had to leave the place that was providing your needs to go to a place that you don't know where your needs are going to come from, but at the same time, God sent you at a time to also meet other people's needs.
Absolutely.
And even in the past few years that we've been up in Zululand, I've seen from growing up to turning 21 in a few days, I've seen how God has used both you and Dad to use your life to meet people's needs, be it by prayer, be it by just being there for somebody late at night or whatever it is. God knew that, hey, at this time in this year, I need Raj and Maryann to be there at this place that I'm going to take them call there so that they can also be a blessing to somebody else. When we came to Hlui, we had a whole lot of people that provided our needs that were sent by God. And so I think when God tells you that He's going to take you somewhere, He knows exactly what He's doing. So basically what He's saying is, listen, kid, this is none of your business about how things are going to turn out for you. I'm working it all for your good. He's working every step. The person that drives in front of you, to the person that meets you at the garage, to the person that you might just wave at, that you probably meet eventually later on. God works everything for our good, and I can testify to that and say that I'm at a place of knowing that I'm fully blessed at the place that we were called at. Do I know that I'm going to come to a season in my life where God is going to call me to a place called there? I do. And a place called there, to those of you that are sitting in this position of God is calling you to a place that you do not know how you are going to make it, we are true testimonies of the fact that when God calls you, He provides for you.
Amen.
He makes sure that the plan that He has for you is going to prevail. God is not going to take you into a place where He's not going to be glorified, where there's no glory for Him. Ultimately, everything is done for God's glory.
Absolutely.
And so if He took us to a place like today, we are sitting here testifying of the goodness of God. A few years back, we would have never thought anything of our journey. We would have never thought that God is going to take us through the season. I'm not saying expect that it's all going to be all good, but you are going to go through the difficult. Yeah, don't despise
small
the small
beginnings.
Don't despise the small beginnings.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere where the flame seems to be small, but you got to just add life to it, and the fire that God keeps burning inside. The more time you spend in the presence of God, I think that's what got us through, is that spending time with God in His Word, depending on Him, not in the hand of man, but on the hand of God. And that's what brought us through where we are now presently, almost in 2007. It's a long time now, we're in 2021. It took almost 13 years or so to God to bring us to the fullness of His blessings. And the latest of our testimony is my children, by the way, were not even living with us. They had to leave home, the town actually, to go into high schools because we do not have a high school where we're living in. And it was so heartbreaking to think, God, you took me to a place called there, but you took my children away from me, in the sense that they had to fight for themselves in so many areas of their life. My eldest born, Jess, and of course Tas, from grade 8 to matric, boarded in Durban. Jessie boarded in Durban. And you wonder, God, are you there? How could this be? Did I hear right? Because you said you prepared the way for me. You said that to Abraham, I will take you to a place called there. And of course, he became the father of many nations. And I live in a town where many nations pass through us. And we become such, I say it with no pride whatsoever, but we become a blessing to people that were total strangers in this community that I'm living in. And when my children left, it was heartbreaking. But God started to mend and mold and shape and bring them to a place at this very moment that my beautiful daughter is now able to bring the feed and let others know out there. Don't lose hope and don't lose faith, because God can. It can only be God that can bring you to this level of understanding that it's not in the hand of man but the hand of God. So if you are in a place of uncertainty, He's taking you somewhere. And I believe for all of us, we have so many questions and no answers yet. The answers are on the way. Because it took me many years being a pastor's wife, being a mom to my children, a difficult mom at times, a tough mom, trying to bring up my children in the ways of the Lord. Our children are not perfect, but I believe that through much prayer and perseverance, God can and He will bring the desires of your heart. All our kids make mistakes, and again I say this, we're not perfect. So in the place called there, you may be in brokenness, you may be in despondency, you may be financially stressed out. God is a God that will never leave us nor forsake us. He prepares the way every step of the way. He says in His word that He will direct our steps. So many years later, I worked at a school for 12 years in a private school. And in the year of COVID-19, God saw it fit for me to now become the new owner of the school and provided in the place called there. If I stayed where I have been, God would have not brought us this far. Am I right, Tass? He would have not brought us this far to where we are now. To see that His goodness and His mercy has followed us right from the very beginning, right to where we are now. So don't become despondent and don't become in despair, wondering, am I going anywhere? You are going to your place called there.
That's good. And I think even in your place called there, it could be right now you're there moment, could be, like my mom said, brokenness. And a lot of us think that brokenness isn't from God or despondency isn't from God, or being in a place like that. But I do think that God also takes us not just to a physical location where He's moving us from places, but He does take us from internal as well. So He also does take us from a place of, I'm experiencing a whole lot of joy, but maybe now you're just kind of in a place of hurt and brokenness, and you think, God, why am I here? Why am I sitting there in this place? But God is also showing you that even in your brokenness, I am love, I am joy, I am peace, and He shows you that I am providing even those things for you. Sometimes I think we think provision is God's going to bless you only materially, but God says in your life, you're also lacking certain needs, which is the things that I can provide, the things that I am, or that He is.
Also total dependency on Him.
Total dependency on Jesus. And when you said earlier on that God will provide the answers for you, something that came to me quickly was that you're only going to find out the answers when you get to the place called there. You can't be sitting and thinking, how am I going to figure everything out? Am I saying don't have a plan? No, I am saying that you need to do the possible, and you gotta have to let God do the impossible. You get there and you realize that God, I'm here, and now you do your work. There are people that are out on missionary work. There are people that are in different fields of ministry, not only ministry, but in life in general. If you're making a decision regarding a job, regarding a place that you need to be in, God is going to give you the answers in His time. Like my mom and my dad, I know she always says that it was one night where she just woke up and she said, I'm ready to go to the place called there. If you are not prepared to go there yet, God is not going to place that dream in your heart to tease you or to taunt you. He's going to place it on your heart because He knows that I'm going to provide for you. I've got a plan for you, but it's for you to trust in Him. And like my mom said, be totally dependent on who Jesus is in your life to fulfill the plans that He has for you. And He has wonderful plans for you. He has perfect plans for you. And that's only going to happen when you step into the unknown. People generally say there's nothing good that ever comes out from your comfort zones. So take that risk, but take it in Him. You don't take it in the world. You don't take it in the decisions of people. You take it with the Father, and you know that if I'm taking it with Jesus, my steps are being ordered to see His glory being fulfilled. Just I think a few weeks ago, my mom's birthday, we had Pastor Keith that shared something, and he says, it is for my good and for his glory. And that stuck with me, because whatever we're doing and the decisions we have to make, even if it doesn't seem good at that moment, it is going to work out for my good and for his glory. So if God is taking you to a place called there, and you are anxious and you're a bit worked up about it, it is for your good and it is for his glory.
Absolutely, and he will not forsake you, for sure. I'm a true testimony as to how God has taken us from level to level, from glory to glory. I believe that if someone's watching here today, that you are wondering how it's ever going to happen, just open your heart to God and let him pour into you, and allow him to speak that life-giving word. This podcast is not to show off or say things that, just to make others feel that we are better than anyone. We're not better than anybody. We are living testimonies as that if God can do it for us, he can do it for you. It took us many years. It hasn't been an overnight decisions that we were making. There were foolish decisions that were made. There were mistakes that we've made. But through it all, God has never forsaken us. He's sufficient for the day. And that's been my daily praise. God, I just want to see for today. And I continue doing that. And we went through trials, we went through difficulties, we went through storms. But through it all, he's been there for us, sailing with us through the storm. The songwriter says, we smile through the storm. With Jesus in my boat, I can smile through the storm. And it's difficult to smile in a storm, isn't it? But I want to say today that we serve a mighty God, and he's really going to carry us through even more. So many things are coming around us, even at this very present time, this very moment that we're living in. And we're at their moment, probably wondering what our country holds. But don't give up. Know that Jesus is still on the throne, and that he will never leave us nor forsake us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all of that words of encouragement, and also to remind us that it's okay if we don't have all the answers. The important thing is that we are dependent on Jesus, and that we fix our faith and our focus on him, on his word, and to truly believe his word. He sent people in our lives to remind us of who he is. And I think that's what's important, is to know that God is real, he's alive, and that when he says something, it's for our best interest. So for all of the encouragement and for all of the motivation and the wise words that you've blessed us with today, I really appreciate you being on my first podcast. I'm excited that I actually got this done. It's been for a long time that I said, I'm going to do this. But I was also very afraid and anxious as to how I'm going to do that, and also just not wanting to be at a place of not being ready. And this was a there that God gave me. He said, I'm going to take you to a place called there. This is my there. And I have to realize that if God said it, he's going to use this platform to reach many. So thank you for everyone who joined us on today's podcast. I am so grateful for every one of you who has taken the time to listen, and to my beautiful mom for making the time and sharing her journey with us. And don't forget that God sees you and he loves you. And like I said before, it's all done in your best interest. So for today's food for thought, God is taking you to a place called there. But the question is, are you ready? So with that being said, don't forget to feed your faith, receive hope, and give out a whole lot of love.